Jim Jones. Who is Jim Jones? Like, he's not on anyone's top 10 list. He's like no one's top 10 list, maybe not even his family.
I'm scared to hustle because niggas is snitching so much. Maybe that's what's going on. I would be scared to hustle too when I know that every other nigga is snitching just so he don't want to do no time because he can't bear to be inside the...
A resurfaced wiretap, a legendary rapper's voice, and an industry insider's criminal past. This isn't just hip-hop beef, it's a credibility crisis. Jay-Z boldly calls out Jim Jones as a fake and a possible snitch, while fans question why someone with such baggage was ever welcomed into ROC Nation. With federal wiretaps, leaked calls about violating Tekashi 6ix9ine, and unshakable rumors of cooperation, Jim's street cred is under fire, and with ROC Nation's CEO Desiree Perez being a known informant, the culture is asking, if Jay-Z stands against snitching, why is his own house full of contradictions? An old audio clip just resurfaced and it's pure wildfire. Jay-Z's voice is clear as day, boldly calling out Jim Jones as a snitch. No cryptic lines, no subliminals. He said it directly. But here's where things get messy in a way that only hip-hop drama can. One of ROC Nation's own high-ranking execs has already been outed as a federal informant. So now people are asking, if Hav is so anti-Sanish, why is his own house not in order? This isn't just rap beef, it's about credibility. Jim Jones has been skating on thin ice since that shot he took at Nas. That move didn't land the way he thought it would. Instead, it triggered a digital deep dive, dragging up old allegations that Jim may have worked with the feds during past investigations. As court docs began circulating again, the public's patience wore thin and the accusations got louder. Now here's the contradiction that's got the culture scratching its head. If Jay-Z really believed Jim Jones was compromised, why bring him into the ROC Nation fold at all? If loyalty and authenticity matter, what was the real motivation behind extending that contract? Why keep someone close who allegedly violated one of the street's cardinal rules? The drama intensified with the release of that leaked audio. Jay didn't just question Jim's integrity, he clowned his skills too. Called him a fake rapper, someone who never truly earned his place in the game based on bars or music. The suggestion, Jim's rise might be rooted in something more strategic, or more suspicious. And just when you thought it couldn't get any wilder, 50 Cent jumped in, dragging this whole saga back into the spotlight. He dropped a photo on Instagram showing Jim posted up with Jay-Z, Diddy, Fat Joe, and other major names. But the real dagger was in the caption. 50 wrote, LOL, individual one, calling the shots out here. I know you working, so please don't say gangster-ish to me. That individual one line. Yeah, that was a loaded reference. A callback to court documents from the Tekashi 6ix9ine in racketeering trial, where Jim Jones was allegedly labeled with that exact term. During that infamous case, 6ix9ine infamously testified against his former 9 Trey Bloods crew, flipping on nearly everyone. And somehow, through it all, Jim's name kept popping up, but he never got charged. That fact alone has fueled years of suspicion, so now, fans and insiders alike are asking tough questions. Did Jay-Z know all along? And if so, why keep the circle tight with someone whose reputation has been in question? And even more pressing, what does this all say about the true dynamics inside ROC Nation? A newly surfaced wiretap just reignited a firestorm, and the name on everyone's lips. Jim Jones. In the recording, Jim is allegedly heard speaking with a high-ranking 9 Trey member, Mel Morta, discussing what to do about Tekashi 6ix9ine. After the rapper publicly distanced himself from the gang, Jim reportedly said Tekashi wasn't ganged no more and needed to be violated. That phrase alone sent shockwaves through both the hip-hop world and the streets, making old rumors about Jim's alleged connections suddenly feel a lot more real. And if that wasn't enough, 50 Cent poured gasoline on the fire by posting the full transcript of the call online, cut, unfiltered, and brutal. To understand the gravity of this moment, we've got to rewind to 2018. That year, the entire world imploded when federal agents arrested him and several 9 Trey members on racketeering and weapons charges. The indictment was no small matter. The 9 Trey Gangsta Bloods were considered one of the most violent sets in the country. And Tekashi wasn't just loosely affiliated, he admitted in court to being a full-fledged member. He confessed to helping plan violent attacks, including an attempted murder, and in exchange for leniency, he agreed to cooperate with prosecutors. That cooperation came with a cost. He named names, lots of them. It was one of the most explosive testimonies in modern hip-hop history. But here's where the situation gets even more tangled. During that trial, prosecutors played a wiretap in open court. And according to transcripts, Jim Jones was on the line with Mel Murda, Allegedly, plotting how to handle Tekashi after he turned on the crew. Jim's alleged words: that Tekashi had to be super violated, that he couldn't just walk away from the gang without consequences. They talked about how Tekashi had distanced himself to protect his image, and how he'd canceled shows and amped up his security. Jim allegedly made it clear he wanted Tekashi removed from the gang's orbit and made an example of. The call wasn't vague, it was detailed, it was direct. And it was entered into federal evidence, something that can't be brushed off as internet gossip or rumor. Which leads to the question that still haunts the conversation today. How did Jim Jones walk away untouched? He was never arrested, never charged, and never officially questioned in relation to the case, at least not publicly. That's what has fans, critics, and fellow artists still scratching their heads, because while Tekashi sat in court handing over the gang's playbook, Jim's alleged voice echoed through the courtroom without a single consequence. Was it a legal technicality? Was Jim never actually under investigation? Or was something deeper at play? Those are the questions that still float around forums and social feeds. One thing is certain: that wiretap tied Jim Jones directly into one of the most high-profile federal gang cases in hip-hop history. And yet, he came out the other side without so much as a legal bruise. For some, it's suspicious. For others, it's just the way the cards fell. But no matter how you look at it, that phone call changed the conversation and added yet another layer to the complex, chaotic world of rap, loyalty, and the law. The name Desiree Perez keeps coming up in conversations that are getting harder to ignore. Once arrested in 1994 for trafficking 35 kilos of cocaine, Perez later became a cooperating witness for the DEA today. She's the CEO of ROC Nation, and people can't help but raise eyebrows at the irony. A leaked audio clip had folks buzzing just because Jim Jones was allegedly caught on a federal wiretap discussing violent gang matters, but because it opened a massive can of worms about who's really calling the shots, and what kind of dirt might be buried under the surface of the industry. The real bombshell: Jim Jones was reportedly on a tapped line with 9 Trey's Mel Murda, talking about how Tekashi 6ix9ine and needed to be super violated. That call was entered into evidence in the federal racketeering case against the 9 Trey Gangsta Bloods, a case that dismantled much of the set. And yet, Jim walked away untouched. No charges, no questioning, not even a mention from prosecutors beyond the call being played. That's when the speculation kicked into overdrive. People started asking the question nobody wanted to say out loud: if Jim was clearly on tape discussing gang retaliation, how did he manage to escape any legal consequences? 6ix9ine and Wack 100 didn't hold back. Tekashi publicly pointed to that wiretap, claiming Jim ordered an attack on him, and questioning why he wasn't arrested. Wack co-signed, suggesting the only way Jim stayed free was by cooperating with the feds. Wack even challenged Jim to clear his name, put out proof, deny the accusations, say anything, but Jim stayed dead silent. In this culture, silence gets people talking even louder. And then came the dip from within. A former Dipset affiliate came forward, claiming Jim didn't just escape the case, he helped build it. She accused him of setting up his own man, Mel Murda, saying there were receipts to back it up. If true, that wasn't just snitching, it was betrayal. That twist flipped the narrative entirely, painting Jim not as a bystander, but as someone who may have thrown his own under the bus to protect himself. 6ix9ine pointed out that when he was locked up, he took care of the people around him, putting money in pockets, making sure families were fed. Meanwhile, he claims, Jim abandoned the very people he came up with. He even painted a vivid picture. Shotty, once a Key9 Trey member, was allegedly sleeping on a rug before Tekashi blew up, while Jim was out doing boardroom meetings with Kanye and dropping luxury cars. The conspiracy only deepened when Desiree Perez's past came back into play. If Jay-Z, ROC Nation's frontman, is supposedly against snitch culture, why is he aligning so closely with people tied to federal cooperation? Critics began to question if Jay's recent moves, like taking subliminal shots at Jim, were more than just music politics. Maybe it was a public distancing, a strategic takedown, or even revenge. See, Jay-Z and Jim Jones have never had a clean history. Their beef dates back to the early 2000s, when Dame Dash brought Cameron and Jim into ROC. Ifella. Jim says Cam was promised a VP position, But Jay didn't co-sign that and brushed it off publicly, saying it was premature. That was a cold message to command to Jim by extension. The tension between them never really cooled off. And while Jay was navigating his infamous battle with Nas at the time, he was also planting the seeds of another quiet war with Jim Jones. So now, we're left looking at a web of contradictions. Jim caught on tape talking gang politics, but facing zero consequences. AROC Nation CEO with a history of cooperation, and Jay-Z, caught somewhere in the middle, taking calculated steps that seemed to signal more than just business. Was Jay exposing Jim? Protecting his brand? Or just making sure the spotlight shifted away from his own circle? Whatever the case, the streets are watching, and the silence from all sides is speaking volumes. Back in the day, Jay-Z tried to pull a slick one in the studio, and it did not land the way he thought it would. After hearing the heat behind Cameron and Juelz Santana's chart-topping banger, Oh Boy, Hov decided to jump on the remix. But instead of just riding the wave and showing love, he used the track as a playground to sneak diss Nas, Cam, and Jim Jones all in one verse. It didn't take long for the Dipset camp to catch on. Cameron wasn't having it. He pulled Jay's verse off the remix entirely, and later explained why. He wasn't about to let Jay-Z hijack their moment just to take petty shots at his rivals. And that right there was the turning point. From then on, the air between Jay and the Dipset crew, especially Cam and Jim, turned cold. Cam and Jim felt like Jay never respected them, never saw them as equals, and certainly never planned to let them share his spotlight. That tension bubbled over into years of jabs, sneak disses, and public shade. Jim, in particular, made it a mission to call Jay out wherever he could: radio interviews, magazine features, even live on stage. He painted Hov as a buttoned-up, boardroom rapper, a corporate suit who'd lost touch with the streets, and was no longer in tune with the raw side of the culture that guys like Jim lived every day. And just like that, the line was drawn. Jay-Z versus Dipset wasn't just about music. It became a culture clash between polished legacy and gritty authenticity. Back in the early 2000s, Jim Jones carved out his image as the street's certified voice of authenticity. He wasn't just rapping about the block, he was living it, loyal to the core, gritty in delivery, and unapologetically tied to the code of the streets. Jim made it known he wasn't here for industry games or federal cooperation. Snitches, he wasn't rocking with them. He made that clear in interviews, lyrics, and his whole public persona. To his fans, Jim represented the last line between the streets and the suits. Fast forward to today, and all the whispering about wiretaps and informant allegations. It hits like a plot twist nobody saw coming. The same guy who once stood so firmly against cooperating with the feds is now caught in rumors that suggest otherwise. The contradiction has left fans scratching their heads, and critics digging even deeper. Meanwhile, Jay-Z played his cards close to the chest. While Jim was throwing shots and stirring tension in the public eye, Hov kept it silent, at least on the surface. But behind closed doors at ROC-A-Fella, people could feel the shift. The air was tense, the energy off. Then came 2006, and everything changed. Jim dropped We Fly High, a certified anthem that lit up the charts and became one of the biggest records of the year. It wasn't just a win for Jim, it was a statement. He didn't need industry cosigns to take over. But that wave of success clearly touched a nerve, because for the first time in years, Jay-Z responded directly. He dropped his own version, Brooklyn High, flipping Jim's hit into a response track. And with that, Jay let everyone know he'd been watching, and he was done staying silent. Jim Jones wasn't about to let Jay-Z's Brooklyn High slide without firing back hard. He immediately clapped back with the We Fly High beef mix, and this time, he wasn't holding anything back. No subliminals, just direct, raw smoke for Hov. Jim came for his age, his persona, his whole polished image with lines like, "Told your old A, asterisk, asterisk to chill. Better slow down before your old A, asterisk, asterisk gets killed." This wasn't just a rap battle anymore, it was disrespect, straight to the point. The tension quickly spilled from the studio to the streets. And by 2008, things got real when footage surfaced of Jim Jones getting into a physical altercation inside a Louis Vuitton store. The person on the receiving end, Lenny Santiago, Jay-Z's longtime A&R and a key ROC Nation insider. It wasn't about handbags, it was about sending a message. Jim got arrested, pleaded guilty to misdemeanor assault. But the streets already knew. This was personal. Jay-Z still didn't respond directly right away. But months later, in an XXL interview, he finally threw a jab and it stung. He called out certain music for dragging the culture down, and without holding back, dropped Jim's name. I mean, like Jim Jones, for example, and I don't mean this just because we never see eye to eye. Then he went in, clowning We Fly High, comparing it to Trey Songz's Smiley Face, even dragging Soulja Boy into it. Translation: Jay was calling Jim's biggest hit ringtone rap, made for teenagers. Coming from Hav, that was a sharp cut for someone who'd mostly ignored Jim in public. Mocking his only mainstream hit was a calculated move, and it landed. The beef cooled down, briefly, but in 2015 Dipset reignited the fire. Cameron and Jim jumped on a freestyle over Diddy's iconic Victory beat and went in. No coded lines, no subliminal shade. They took direct shots at Jay-Z, ROC Nation, and even mocked the famous ROC Nation brunch. To them, Jay had gone soft. He was too polished, too far removed from the streets, to keep claiming any real credibility. The message was clear: Jay-Z wasn't one of them anymore. Then came the twist. After over a decade of war, something nobody expected happened. In early 2017, Jim Jones, after years of public disrespects, signed with ROC Nation. Yes, that ROC Nation, the same brand he spent years dragging, and he didn't keep it low-key either. He posted about it, celebrated it, even flexed that he was finally invited to that same ROC Nation brunch he used to dissect selfies, suits. Praised Jim went full 180. He called Jay a legend and showed nothing but love. But Hav, he played it cold. No welcome post, no quote, no smiles, just silence. Jay-Z barely acknowledged Jim's signing. It wasn't a reunion, it was business, and that silence spoke volumes. Jay wasn't building bridges. He was tightening his grip. And when you look at the pattern, it all starts to make sense. Jay's been doing this for years, slowly bringing former rivals under his umbrella. The Lox, Fat Joe, Meek Mill, even J. Cole, all had rocky moments with Jay before joining the ROC. Now, Jim was just the next piece on the board. But even after the deal, Jay kept his distance. No features, no public alliance, just cold paperwork. And that had people wondering, was Jay keeping Jim at arm's length to protect the ROC Nation brand? Especially considering the still floating rumors around Jim's name from the Tekashi 6ix9ine in case. Those federal wiretaps where Jim was allegedly caught instructing people to violate 6ix9ine's crew. They never sat right with the streets. No indictment, no questioning, no heat, and folks started side-eyeing Jim. Whack 100 pushed the theory hard, accusing Jim of cooperating with the feds. He called him out, dared him to deny it, show receipts, but Jim stayed silent. And that silence, it only fueled the flames. Things got even messier when a former Dipset member came forward, claiming Jim had set up his own homie Mel murder. That moved the conversation from just informant talk to betrayal. Jim, who once built his brand on street code and loyalty, now faced accusations of flipping on his own people. And that's where Jay-Z's silence gets even more interesting. Jay's whole brand, especially in the streets, has always been tied to loyalty and integrity. He's been clear he doesn't rock with snitches, but here's the twist. ROC Nation's current CEO, Desiree Perez, is a confirmed federal informant. That's not rumor. That's public record. In 1994, she got caught moving 35 kilos of coke and later cooperated with the D, even wearing a wire. Despite this, Jay placed her at the top of ROC Nation. She's since had her record wiped clean thanks to a Trump pardon in 2021. And it's Desiree Perez who stood behind Jay at that infamous NFL press conference when he said, "I think we've passed kneeling." So now the question becomes, if Jay is okay with Desiree Perez, a known confirmed informant, would he ice Jim out over rumors of snitching? That's when a deeper theory started making rounds. Maybe this isn't about loyalty at all. Maybe DJ's real goal is control, power. Maybe he's not choosing sides, he's buying both. Think about it, Jim didn't bring anything Jay needed. But Jay brought something Jim desperately wanted, validation that our OC Nation co-signed. That brunch, that access. And when Jim's name got tied to that Tekashi wiretap, Jay did what he always does, he protected the brand. No defense, no loyalty, no emotion, just silence. Cold and calculated. So maybe the issue wasn't that Jim cooperated. Maybe Jay wasn't mad at what Jim did. Maybe he was mad that Jim didn't do it for him. Let that sink in, because if that theory holds water, it flips the whole narrative. It's no longer about street code or snitch ethics. It's about strategic empire building. It's chess, not checkers. And when you start to see the board from that angle, you realize this whole game has been rigged from the start. So what do you believe? Is Jim still the street-certified capo he claims to be? Is Jay-Z the silent puppet master playing both sides? Or are they both just doing what they have to do to survive in an industry where loyalty is a luxury and power is everything? Drop your thoughts in the comments, share this with someone who needs to hear the real, and remember this story. It's far from over.